A business is money. People are like to play founder mode or play startup. That's what new founders like to do. You need to have a business. You need to show traction. You need to start making revenue. Without that, you can have 40 or 50 features, or you can spend 4 years of building a product. But if it makes $0, your business is also $0. There is no investor who's going to give you $100 million check before you have anything. Like, you don't have an MVP, you have a few nice documents that you made with AI, which is great. You know, you have your idea, you're strategizing it, it's good, you started. But either you're gonna give up so much from your equity and you're gonna have to get this $1 million for like 50% or maybe even more, or you're just gonna lose 6 months or a year trying to raise money and you're gonna give up on your idea because you didn't manage to raise this money.
You know, I grew my agency to 25 million in sales with 0 investors. Fitness business that I started, it was on a Google Doc. It cost me $0. The agency, I only would spend money when a client pays me. I use their money to go and fulfill the service. So you don't need money for many businesses, and people instantly always think, oh, I have this idea, I need to raise money.
From building connections to building empires, this is Dre Medici, founder of LinkMe.
We message thousands of influencers every single day to bring them onto LinkMe, and now we just focus on that specific thing, you know, getting them to have it in their bio. We're at over 1 billion people that come onto a LinkMe in a single year.
And not just the reach, you're also working with some of the biggest influencers out there, like Ashton Hall, iShowSpeed.
Exactly.
You're working probably with the biggest influencers that anybody knows. They also bring in new people to your LinkMe accounts, which is amazing. We're doing this podcast eventually for entrepreneurs, new founders, and people that, you know, they want to start their business, they want to start getting out there, either if it's a technology, SaaS, agency, whatever it might be. And we're trying to make this content to provide them as much value as we can. So founders like yourself, you know, founders that build 9-figure companies, founders that has been in that space since you were like, what, 17?
Yeah, 17 with marketing, yep.
Yeah, so that's amazing. Like, so when you first got started it was the marketing agency, right?
So actually, funny enough, my first business on Instagram was actually a workout meal plan business. So I was making, you know, workout meal plans customized on Google Docs, so I had no cost at all. Did like 100,000 in profit with that business. And then I thought of a better idea, which was to also make it an e-commerce store. So a lot of the products that I would recommend them in the workout plans, like push-up bars, pull-up bars, all that stuff, I started selling it with an e-commerce store, and I did like 600,000 in sales with that e-commerce store, along with the workout meal plans. And then I also opened a restaurant. I took some of that money, opened a restaurant when I was 18 with my father. And then I basically had a case study now for a fitness program, my personal brand, and a restaurant. So that's when I had the idea of the marketing agency in 2018. I said, you know, I need to do this for thousands of businesses around the world, and that's kind of how, you know, everything took off.
So when you just started the fitness program and you started just getting people, did you do any marketing or just from your personal brand and your personal outreach?
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about like real marketing strategies at the time, so it was all just based off the hustle. So I had a personal brand, you know, only 2,000 followers. I was just building it up at the time. But the main thing that I did to really transform the business and get a lot of customers was I made sure I had high quality content, right? So I, you know, used some of the money I had saved up from previous businesses I did when I was younger, because I always started making money since like 9 years old, a bunch of different sneakers selling, tickets, all that. So I took some money, I invested in really good content, okay? So the page looked very clean, aesthetic, not like some people, you know, they start a fitness business, they, you know, take a selfie video, put it on, you know, they're just putting it near the dumbbell, filming themselves, and it doesn't really look so high quality. So I made sure I had like really cinematic, top tier content. Then I made sure that I was doing a lot of shout outs and promotions on theme pages to build up the following to like 10,000 followers. Once I had that established credibility, it was very easy to build trust and people to want to work with me. So what I did was I started to get all the high schoolers I could, literally like 500 plus people were doing this, where they would basically just post a testimonial on their story of different people's bodies I was transforming. And every person that responded to their story that was interested in transforming their body, they would send me the number. And if I closed the deal, I would pay them a commission. So I had like 500 high school kids every day posting stories. They would send me leads of people interested in transforming their bodies. And at the time I was doing all the sales calls myself. So I would literally sit at home doing like 20 calls every single day. And then, you know, I was just selling on a low ticket, you know, $120, and I would give them a commission of $20 just for sending the lead. So that was a marketing strategy that got to 100,000 in profit, you know, in like 5-6 months, very, very fast. And then obviously once I did the e-com and then all that stuff, it all
First of all, I think that's amazing, you know, at 17 to reach to a revenue of over 100K. Obviously, it grew much more than that, and you saw how you're gonna monetize it to different avenues. So first of all, that's amazing, and that's very impressive. From your first business to the second one, what was the strategy to open a mortgage agency from the fitness? Like, how did you got there?
Yeah, great question. So actually, what happened was I realized that the LTV and the AOV in fitness was never going to be as high as if I went into a business model where I was making people more money than what they were paying me, right? Because if you're working with a client and you're getting them incredible results in fitness, but they don't have a good job, they can't afford to pay me bigger amounts, 1,000,
Right.
2,000, because it depends on their income. And I wasn't helping them with their income. I was just helping them with their body.
Right.
So I said, I love fitness, I'm always going to stay in good shape, but I think there's a better avenue for me to go into a business model where now I can charge a business, let's say a minimum of $1,000, but if I make them $5,000, they'll keep paying me $1,000 forever, or even $10,000 a month, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So once I figured that out and I realized, wow, I've already had case studies with different businesses. Now I can go into a business where I'm helping people make more money. I knew that the amount of money that I was going to be making was going to be 100x, and so it was a very easy decision to make.
And what was your first success case study? Like, what was the first client that you got to the marketing agency, and what was the feedback until when you started to see that you're actually making people money?
Yeah, so the first one was really, my own business. So basically the story of how the restaurant happened was my dad was always like a corporate chef, at a company, at a restaurant. And in like 2015, the owner of that restaurant, he actually passed away. He was trying to save somebody's life in India in a retreat and passed away. And so my dad was left like, basically at that time, a corporation came and bought the restaurant. So he was kind of left like jobless for like 2 years. So basically he got to a point where he had $0. So we had an opportunity of a location that we saw. So I had some of the money from my, businesses. We also had to take some partners as well at the time to help us actually make it possible. And so I started doing all the same marketing services basically that I did with the fitness company, which was, reaching out to all these high schoolers. Here the strategy was, reaching out to actually people that can afford coming into a nice restaurant. But the exact same strategy. And so when I saw that it worked, for the fitness, my personal brand, I was also doing some mentorships. Then I saw that it worked now for a restaurant. I said I need to get thousands of businesses. And so at that time, I actually moved to New York in 2018. And I would literally just start walking to businesses, walking to them, walking in, telling them, showing them results for the restaurant, getting restaurant clients like that, doing content, doing lead gen, all of that. And then next thing you know, I learned about ads. I learned about, how to get my offer out there. I had a lot of people seeing me making a lot of money. People wanted to join my sales team. So I built a sales team of like 7 people in 2019. And in 2019, we did like $2 million in sales with the agency, right? So everything happened super fast. My income, like I became a millionaire basically like you could say overnight, because it just like transformed. The amount of money that I was making compared to the fitness was it was different. Like I have videos in 2019, 2020, doing consistent like 10, 15K. Even in 2020, I had like a few 50K days also. So everything happened like very, very fast, the amount of money that I was making. And then at that point, it was just, spending money on client acquisition, started spending 50, 70K a month, having a good organized sales team. And my offers and my fulfillment was really good. And that's kind of how everything, took off.
Do you still have clients today from back in the day? Like
100%. 100%. We have several clients that if we go to the database, we see they've been paying subscriptions since 2019 till today. So hundreds of clients like that.
So you can see the value, and that's amazing.
Of course.
Eventually, that's the most important thing. If you can provide a person value and you can show them, you can not just show other people, but you can see for yourself that what you're providing is actually valuable. I think that's also a game changer.
Definitely. And one of the things that I think has helped me achieve that is my methodology has always been provide the best quality service, right? So the best fulfillment, but also do your best without completely crushing your margins, whether it's structuring, how to organize it with your team, but do your very best job to figure out how to have not just, the best margins, but how to give your clients the best price so you don't lose clients to competition. Right? Because if I can figure out a way to give the best fulfillment, US work, everything is top quality, and I can also give you a price that no one is beating, I will keep you forever. right? And I think that's something that people make a mistake. They want to charge super high, then they realize why no one's opting in or why they're losing clients. You know, for example, maybe there's an agency who specializes in meta ads. Maybe there's one that is so good at meta ads, and they figured a way where they only need to charge a business $1,500. And so they're so good. And then you have another one that is like, they charge $7K a month, and they're not even that good. The one with $1,500, even though they're charging 3-4 times less, they're gonna get way more clients, way more retention because of the fact that you're charging $7K and you're not as good as someone who can do the same service for a lot less. You know?
And what I would also love about what you're offering is that it's very niche. You know, you're not a marketing agency that does it all. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like you're focusing on the outreach, you're focusing about helping businesses, which the exact marketing approach that you have done since you were 17.
100%, yeah. So we do have, you know, those two main services, right? The lead generation, we do it in a very unique way, you know, not just like everyone else with the ads. But we have set up, you know, when you say correct me if I'm wrong, we have set up like our website to have all the services, you know, so we do offer ads, websites, apps, you know, everything you can think of, video editing, you name it, right? Because my whole vision was the way that I see it, and some people don't see it the same. I don't want somebody to go and need to find another marketing agency when they're working with me, right? So let's say I have a client, I only offer 2 services. They're like, oh, well, we had to hire somebody to make our website or to make our app because you don't offer that. So I always wanted to position myself where, no, you don't need to go anywhere else. We're a one-stop shop for everything you need marketing, right? But we do, of course, we can't give people analysis paralysis where we pitch them with 20 different services at once. So we have, you know, our 2 core main services. Once we funnel them into that and we have trust with them, it's very easy for them to explore everything else we can offer.
So that's something very similar that the way that we started, we also started, you know, as an agency that just built like websites and apps. Yep. But when we started to get more and more founders in, we wanted to also be like a one-stop shop for every founder. So if you're an entrepreneur and if you're a founder, you can basically just come to us. We're gonna start from either your app and your website, but we can also help you with raising money, with the pitch decks, with everything from the business side as well, from a business plan and a business model. So basically the goal was to build one-stop shop for entrepreneurs. If you wanna raise money, if you wanna bootstrap, you come to us. That was the goal. But it started very similar. It was very niche for building a website and building apps. When was the time that you realized that, okay, this is going to turn into millions of dollars? And what was like the first time that you said, I have something here?
For sure. I think when I started to think in the millions was more so when I had the idea of the agency. The fitness, I was very, you could say, premature when it comes to understanding scaling businesses. You know, I had the hustle, I had the strategy of, you know, getting leads by other people promoting. Like, it was literally insane. I had over 500 people promoting it on their story. I would go to a nightclub in Miami, people would scream, "Womp, womp," name of the company. Everyone knew it locally. It was a very big thing. So I knew that I was gonna figure it out to make the millions, but I still wasn't sure if it was gonna be with this service at the time. But the second that I had the marketing agency, and I said, you know, I can charge somebody $1,500 and completely transform their business, like literally from not knowing what's gonna happen next to literally having the best social presence, having an optimized lead generation system, you know, having the support from me. And when I did the numbers, you know, the simple numbers, 1,000 people times $1,000, $1 million, I said, you know, I'm going to be a millionaire within a few months. You know, I already kind of knew it all. It was all set to be. So I think that's the biggest turning point, you know, when you really can just understand that what you're offering is so needed in the market. You know, it's high ticket enough where you can reach these big numbers fast. And then you also have the subscription aspect, which is something that I always preach all the time. The biggest mistake that I made with that fitness company, why I didn't even keep it on the side, was because I made the mistake of not even making it a subscription. So that was a huge mistake. So when I learned from that mistake, and I made sure that everyone that comes into my company, we at least pitch them on a subscription. Even before they pay the main ticket, we tell them 99% of people will sign up on a subscription to stay on X, Y, and Z. That's one of the biggest things that transformed my business, because having that subscription allows you to hire talent, because you know you have X, Y, and Z coming in. Get an office because you know you can afford it every single month. Make investments in real estate and other things because you know you're gonna be able to afford it. You have a predictable system. For people that, let's say their predictable system is, okay, I know I spend $70K a month on ads and I'm gonna make $200K, but they don't have subscriptions. It's still not as predictable to an investor, for example, telling him, look, these are my numbers, versus, look, we have this MRR that comes in and it's been consistently coming in for a year, not including new revenue that we have to go and get. Because if a sales guy, your top guy, gets sick or leaves, or an ad account goes down, it's not the same as monthly subscription that's hitting every single time. Right? So that was kind of my strategies to get to that point, for sure.
And what was your first hire? Like, when did you start saying, okay, I can't do this just by myself anymore? Or not because of that, just I see the potential here, I have to hire somebody to help me to scale this business?
Yes, very, very good question. So this is one of the big mistakes that I made in my career that I always like to spread light on. And I like to spread light on it in a way where I always talk about both sides so people don't think I'm just choosing one, because I actively play the role of both sides. So what I'm getting at here is when I saw the potential and I knew, okay, look, I have this office. Right now it's just me in this office. I need to start having some people to come in. My first thing being, again, a premature business owner of scaling and going through downfalls and stuff like that. It hadn't happened yet. And neither of my parents were ever, successful entrepreneurs. They both, always had a job their whole life, my childhood. So it wasn't like I had them to lean on and ask them questions. So basically, at this time, I had a friend in high school that I would do events and parties with and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I had already had some business experience with him, working together. But I also had promised myself in some of those times in high school when we did business, I'm never gonna do business with this person again, because I just felt like sometimes things would go wrong, and I just, God was telling me, oh, bad luck with doing business with this person. And what happened was, I'm looking for the right person. I didn't really know who. I'm in New York at this time. I just moved there. I didn't really know who to call on. And we were still, in communications. We were still friends. He was in college, kind of depressed and stuff like that. And me, I have a very big heart. I always want to help people when I see that, I'm doing well and they have the potential to do well, but they're not doing well. So basically, I said, hey, bro, I have this opportunity. I called him on Zoom. It's already $1 million business. Okay, I've already sold it. I already know it. It's done. You don't need to prove it. You want in? Come. So he came to New York, dropped out of college within a week, and, he had an opportunity to be part of the company. And so he starts closing sales. And then, he doesn't have a place to stay. He was getting in a hotel. So I said, okay, you can come live with me, stuff like this. So now he starts helping with the rent and stuff, So at this time, I'm like, I start to feel bad that, when I'm closing a deal, I get 100% commission.
Yeah.
And when he closed the deal, he's only getting his percentage of commission. So I only feel bad because, again, I'm very new into the business of scaling big companies, right? So I feel bad and I say, okay, you're helping me pay some rent. Look, I'm going to give you 40%. Of the company, okay?
Of the company,
not
commissions.
No,
of the company.
Of the company. Because you're gonna help me pay, split things, this, that, okay. So I do this, I make a big mistake, in about 2.5 years, he makes $1 million in profit with the company. He starts putting this money into crypto, getting distracted. We have a sales team, he doesn't need to do sales calls. There's nothing for him to do. He's just sitting around wasting time. He starts losing money, putting into crypto, options, all this, losing all the money. I start needing to have help him pay credit cards and stuff like that when we're a super profitable company. It doesn't make sense, crazy. So I buy him out for about $250,000, okay? The reason why this was such a big mistake was because when I bought him out for $250,000, 7 months before I had bought him out, I had done my first major hire. Okay, I had hired other people that come in the office, stuff like that. My first major hire, who was my executive assistant. Okay, my executive assistant, this was around 2019. He's still with me today. Okay, so I made him part of LinkMe. He's full time with me every single day. He's my right hand, does everything. So the reason why it was such a big mistake, my first idea of bringing somebody, was because it needed to be an EA. It needed to be a closer, or that's just commission, not somebody that, I'm just starting the business, it has a lot of potential, I need to have a partner right away. And now I say the other side, it's because I'm not trying to give the message of don't trust anyone, don't have a partner, getting an EA is way better, you'll save more money with equity and stuff like that. Yes, it is partially true to a certain extent, because on the other hand, as you know, with LinkMe, it's a bigger project, so I'm okay with having two other co-founders in that project. So I'm not totally against partners when you're going for a big exit and you have a big plan. But when you have something like a service-based business, if you have talent to be able to manage, for me, I didn't endure one extra stress after I removed them from the company. It wasn't, I have to do a million things now. No, my EA was able to do everything. My EA gets a good salary. I'm saving way more money than when I'm dishing out 40% of the profit, every single month. And so that was the best hire I ever made. Bringing on my EA, who, became my best friend. We've been to now every summer, we go to Europe 4 years in a row, everything paid for, travel everywhere, have a great time. We're building other things as well. And so going back to the question, that was my first hire that I did in the company, bringing that. What I take from that is maybe before you go and bring a partner, unless you have a plan okay, we're going to take this business to billions. It's good to have other people, a co-founder that can help you in the beginning. But I always tell people before you go and make that decision, you're much better off hiring an EA than going and giving somebody partnership and equity. Because what I've seen that happens with that is that an EA, for example, if you tell them, hey bro, I need you to go to this meeting, or hey bro, I need you to close this call, or I need you to do X, Y, and Z, they're gonna do it. Certain partners, maybe not Alon, maybe not other partners that I have now, but certain partners, once they build some ego, right, and they forget kind of what happened and all this stuff, they will start saying, no, send this guy, no, send that guy. And then it's like, I gave you equity so that you're always the guy if I need you to be the guy.
So
but they become very reliant on, okay, now there's systems in place, there's sales guys, I don't need to do sales, I don't need to do that. So this was something that I always try to spread to founders in the beginning of their journey. Everyone thinks, I need to find my co-founder right now. Find your EA first.
So, and I couldn't agree more. I think that eventually when it's a partner, it's a partnership. It's not your client, it's not your employee, it's a partnership. It's somebody that is going to either be with you for long haul, or somebody that looks like they're going to have to buy out, or somebody that can also destroy the company from within. Now, I had a very similar experience to that with our previous company, with Immigrate. So we had a third partner. I wouldn't say anything bad about him. He's a great guy. He's still a friend of ours. We had to buy him out at a certain time because we just felt like we are doing more, and he's starting to put his foot out of the gas. Even though in the beginning of the company, it was doing the job great, but just we felt like we were always pushing more. We see the vision for a much bigger company and for a much bigger fin, but he didn't have the vision. He just want to make money and just to make the sales. And eventually, we did bottom out, and then we stayed friends until today. Sometimes we meet and we're having a drink, but we were focused on having him in because we wanted this other partner. We want somebody that's going to do this extra work. Like I said, somebody that you can trust, that you can just do this and he's going to do it because he has equity. But it wasn't the right fit, and I think the main thing was that he saw that I'm the one that's leading the ship. I'm the one that's holding the wheel, I'm the one that's in the ship, and that was very hard for him. It was hard for him to see that there's another person that's leading, there's another person that he's responsible. Because before we started the company, he was actually my manager in the company that we were all working before. So he was actually my manager before that. So I think it was a very hard shift for him to say that from being my manager, we were opening a company, but I'm the one that's leading the company. And I feel like it was tearing apart the relationship. So we just decided that we're gonna stay apart, we're gonna stay friends, but as far as for business, we're keeping apart. What would be the main advice that you're gonna tell founders and entrepreneurs at their first stage, before making their first dollar? I have a business idea, right? Doesn't matter if it's an app, an agency, a service-based, I have this business idea. What would you say is gonna be the first thing they have to do to make sure it's an actual business and they can continue with it?
There's quite a few different things. Maybe potentially decent good idea would be, formulate an NDA and start sharing it with people that you trust. Even though you're making them sign an NDA, you still want to do it with people that you trust.
You do business with people, not with numbers eventually.
For sure. And even with an NDA, if somebody tries to steal it and then you got to go to court, it's not fun either, So I prefer do an NDA, but still do it with somebody you trust.
Yeah.
Right? Start feeling it out. The next thing you do is you start posting, once you have your LLC and you get your social media accounts established and all this stuff, I would say, to start posting organic content about what you're doing, about what you're building. Hey guys, join me. This is episode 1 of building my startup. This is what I plan to do. If you start getting a lot of comments, of people supporting it and really doing it and believing in it, obviously you have a winning, offer right there. And just asking people, hey, what do you think about this? Obviously you don't want to give your ideas away because those have a lot of value in certain points of your life, and you don't give all your gems that come to you from God, away sometimes. So yeah, you protect who you tell, but definitely I think those are the first steps, reach out to the right people, post organic content to see the feedback you get. And at the end of the day, I personally think you should choose a business that you automatically know it's gonna work. Because for me, when I think about when I founded the agency and I already knew it was going to be $1 million business, I didn't do either of the examples I just shared. I didn't go ask anyone's opinion, and I didn't even need to make organic content. I guess I had a personal brand, so I was posting it, but I really already knew. I knew that if you look at thousands of successful businesses, they're already successful, but you go look at their social media, they have 500 followers. So I knew, okay, I'm going to solve this problem. Then I know in the market, only one main way to get leads. SEO is one, takes 6 months. Ads is another, high barrier to entry. I'm going to offer something very low barrier to entry. 24 hours, you get results. So once I had these answers, I didn't need anyone's opinion, you know, and every day you can go on Instagram and you will find there's still millions of businesses that I haven't had the opportunity to help, you know, so there's still so much endless potential, and I've been doing it, imagine, since I was 17, you know, so I haven't been doing enough, you know, because there's still so many to help. So
there is always more to do. Doesn't matter how big you are, there is always more to do. But yeah, that's really impressive. I think that especially for new founders or a first-time entrepreneur, that validation is really important. Now, for you, for example, you did a marketing agency company, which you don't need to validate it. Businesses needs marketing. Businesses needs more clients. Every business is going to have a problem with leads. Doesn't matter if it's a successful business or not a successful business. Everybody wants more leads. Everybody wants more people to come into the door and to scale their business. So your validation was already there. Like eventually when it's a B2B, not a B2C company, like the one that you had with the fitness, like I said, one of the main issues was there was no recurring revenue. But the other one, it's also a B2C. So you had to speak with high schoolers and people that's going to bring you clients. And you still were very successful with that even at 17, which is amazing. But even with that, after that, when you started to do a B2B business and you started to, without even any marketing, without any ads, right? Like you didn't spend any money on marketing. You actually did your marketing approach that you're going to sell to other businesses too.
Exactly.
Which is
the key.
The value right there. Like they're going to see the value when you bring them in. So that's amazing.
Exactly.
And now, so today at 2025, but you guys started at 2024, 2023. I'm talking about LinkMe.
Oh, LinkMe, we actually started in 2020.
2020.
2020. Okay. So we just, had our breakthrough about 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
When we first started it, I had the idea of wanting to convert it into a social media app where you can post content, like, comment, etc. Because I saw at that time the revolution that was happening with TikTok, which was, you could be a nobody, have 0 followers, you could start posting, and all of a sudden
the algorithm can just turn it into an audience, right? million followers in
exactly.
a night.
And so I started thinking, there's always people that are going to be looking for the next platform, right? The next one where you can get there early and have an advantage and grow. And the problem with that was you really need to have like 100 million active users to really be able to, feed people the right content they want to watch, have the people in the close radius, hundreds of thousands of people in Miami and this, that, you really needed to build that. And that was going to cost us a lot of money, right? We probably would have needed to put maybe 100 million into ads. Who knows, right? To have 100 million active. We pivoted where, we saw that the moment we started having people put the link in bio, our Google Analytics traffic was spiking, because before our Google Analytics traffic would show us the activity in the app,
right,
where people can post and stuff like this, but people were just preferring to, use Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. So the analytics and the traffic wasn't as major. Once we got a few big names, we saw, wow. And now on our analytics, it shows in the last 30 minutes, we've had 5,000 people press on a LinkMe, right? So our numbers would fly and start to skyrocket. And so we said, hey, look, we're going to leverage my same strategy that I leverage across, all my businesses to really go out into the market and just go after every single person and reach out to them. And that's exactly what we did. And every single day we compound that, we messaged thousands of influencers every single day to bring them onto LinkMe. And now we just focus on that specific thing, getting them to have it in their bio. And now because of that, as you saw today in the meeting, we're at over 1 billion people that come onto a LinkMe in a single year.
And not just the reach, you're also working with some of the biggest influencers out there.
100%.
Like Ashton Hall, iShowSpeed.
Exactly.
You're working probably with the biggest influencers that anybody knows. They also bring in new people to your LinkMe accounts, which is amazing. So how did you get people like, for example, Ashton Hall or iShowSpeed to put your LinkMe account into their bio?
Yeah, so here's like a secret strategy that I'll tell most people is like, some people, like they can be very big. Ashton Hall and Speed are not the example I'm going to give, but they can be very big, but maybe they didn't really post content in the last month. So their DMs are not that flooded with like a bunch of messages. So like you can catch them at the right time and like they will actually personally respond. The other major strategy that I'll give away as well is when you have people that are actively posting like Ashton Hall and iShowSpeed, they're going to have their DMs flooded. So what you do is you try to find those people within their team that have a very small following, whether it's a new manager that they tagged on their story one time or people like this, someone that you see is hanging around them, the videographer, stuff like that. So for example, right now, Tyler Hero, basketball player with the Miami Heat, he has LinkMe in his bio. How did I get him to have LinkMe in his bio? He wasn't answering his DMs. So what I did was I saw that there was this kid that I was talking to one time. got a chance to do a free video shoot for Tyler Hero. So he went and posted on his story, I'm here with Tyler Hero. I sent it to him and I say, hey brother, show this to Tyler. He showed it to Tyler. Tyler says, oh my God, this is amazing. Adds it like this. You know, so it's a lot of going and finding those right situations where you can go to someone that has communication with them, but they don't have such a big audience where their DMs are going to be flooded and not see it.
Yeah, because that's it's not like they're ignoring your message because
they just can't see
ego.
it.
They're just
thousands of messages every single second.
It's not because of ego, and I think a lot of people, you know, when they're trying to message to this type of influencers or people with millions of followers, they think they don't answer them because of ego or because they're not interested or anything like that. But you know, if you want to get your foot in the door, you need to get your foot in the door in any way.
Yeah, you got to be strategic. You know,
exactly. And if it's gonna be like I said, with a third party, you still got to the same person that you wanted. And people need to understand that eventually these type of people are getting thousands of messages or hundreds of messages every single day. To get your foot in the door in that approach, it's probably not going to happen unless you're also an influencer or something like that with millions of followers, and it's just going to read through your name. But if you're not, you're going to have to be strategic and you have to think about how you can get there, which I appreciate that you're sharing this with the people that are watching this.
Of course, and you also today, we had a meeting earlier today at the LinkMe office, and you know, Daniel and Alon were giving incredible, you know, tips and strategies and stuff like that. So maybe share more about like, what is the difference for you when you can, because you can add value to a company that is very successful and already raising a lot of money, and you can also add value to somebody just getting started. So like, what do you think for you is like the biggest difference when you're working with like a new company versus a bigger one? Like, do you think like, obviously there's less gaps to fill in into the more successful one, so there's probably more, but what else is something, or maybe what inspires you more, you know, working with one already successful or one just, you know, getting started in the early stages?
So it's not about the size of the company. For me, it's about if I can give value. If I can give value, it doesn't matter if you're a huge company or if you just get started. If I can give you value, and if I can, either if it's going to be, you know, just talking to you and just see how can I help, I'm going to give you value. Like either if it's a partnership or a client, I'm not going to sign somebody as my client if I don't know I can give him value back. So the main thing for me is about giving value. So even in the meeting today that we had, when I saw I have an insight that I can actually give and provide, I said it. But before that, you know, I took the time to absorb what you guys are telling me and see if there's something I can actually say and provide that is going to give you guys value. Because some of the times that, you know, people are like to fire straight away. Like, you know, they have an opinion, they're going to fire straight away. The problem with that is that you first of all need to absorb the information, because as a company, like for example as LinkMe, you're probably doing strategy calls either daily or weekly.
Of course.
You know your market from A to Z. You know, you didn't just get started, not from, you know, not the size of the entrepreneur from the 0 to 10. You're already in the 100. So for me, it was, okay, I don't want to say something that you guys already thought about or you guys already talked about in your previous meetings. I want to see and observe, and maybe I can give value back from that. But to new founders, I know that my specialty is going to bring founders from 0 to 10. So even founders that are in the 100, I'm going to try to give value back, either if it's for the partnership or hopefully they're going to be my client as well. But on the other side, I know that for any new founder, doesn't matter if it's an agency, if it's a SaaS company, if it's a hardware, doesn't matter what it is, the 0 to 10, that's my specialty. That's where I know how to bring them from that. So either if it's from signing your first clients, getting your first LOIs. For example, today I was talking to a founder. He's trying to raise $1 million for a hospitality SaaS product. And I asked him, like, how much money did you make so far? 0. And okay, so what you're raising $1 million for? I want to build the MVP and the SaaS. Okay, there is no investor who's going to give you a $100 million check before you have anything. Like, you don't have an MVP, you don't have either, you know, from a few nice documents that you made with AI, which is great. You know, you have your idea, you're strategizing it, it's good, you started. But either you're going to give up so much from your equity and you're going to have to get this $1 million for like 50% or maybe even more, or you're just going to lose 6 months or a year trying to raise money and you're going to give up on your idea because you didn't manage to raise this money. My advice to him was, okay, let's do two approaches. Either you do it manually, no SaaS, no technology, no features. You do it manually. You do it in the Google Sheets. You manually for the hotels and for the hospitality that you're trying to provide a solution. Once you can show data after that, so you do it for a month, 2 months, you got data, okay, I can provide you with this amount more of revenue and I can save you this amount of time. Or you can get to an investor and tell them, this is how much I made with these 2 hotels that now we started a pilot, but now I know that I can, for example, I started working with Hilton and now I can know that I'm going to be with all of the branches of Hilton that Hilton has. Or the second approach is to build a very minimum MVP. 1, 3 features, the features that they need right now that your competitors are not offering. If you're gonna be a company like Uber and you're gonna do the same features as Uber, there is no way to compete with them. But if you're gonna see and you're gonna go through Uber's reviews and you're gonna see what people don't like about Uber, where are the areas that they're falling of, that's your features. That's what you're getting started at. Then you're going to start scaling features and adding more features, so you're going to be able to capture a bigger size of the market. But this is your users, the people that don't like those current competitors and those current companies. And it's also very easy to contact them, right? They have their email right there, either if it's in Google reviews, either if it's Trustpilot. It's very easy to communicate with them. You can always go to Reddit and also search as well. So what do people think about Uber? And you're going to see tons of also good comments and also bad comments. You don't want the good comments. Those are fans. You want the bad comments. You want to see what people don't like about your competitor. So you're not going to start building a $1 million software. You're going to start with a very basic MVP. You're going to start getting those people in, and you're going to add features with time. So I know very well how to bring those people from the 0 to 10. Getting your first clients, doing the first assets, like if it's the business plan, the business model, building your MVP. And that's what we're offering here at StartWise in the program itself.
That's a major value bomb. I think every startup founder needs to go to their competitors and read the negative reviews and just add feature. I think that's super underlooked. Even I'm going to take that to the office and go do that for our competitors at LinkMe, right? And just see what other people are saying that they want. It's an incredible strategy. So I'm glad that you touched up on that.
I learned from Lior Puzin from a previous podcast, something that he shared with me.
Wow.
Which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be an amazing value for founders, and especially because you don't need to waste so much time. You don't need to waste so much money. A business is money. People are like to play founder mode or play startup. That's what new founders like to do. You need to have a business. You need to show traction. You need to start making revenue. Without that, you can have 40 or 50 features, or you can spend 4 years of building a product. But if it makes $0, your business is also $0.
So my question here is with the person that you spoke to today, that you told them to do the MVP, make about 1 to 3 features. What is around an estimate? And then I have a follow-up question. What around would you say that's going to cost them?
So in the program that we have, we're offering founders to get from that 0 to 10, and we're giving them the resources that we have. So from developers, designers, business analysts, we are making sure that they're leaving the program, which is a 90 days program. We are making sure they're leaving the program with an MVP, with business assets like a business plan, business model, pitch deck, one-pager, connections with investor, everything that they need. And also we're going to help them to get either their first 1-2 clients or their first LOIs. Obviously it depends on the business. If your business is approaching Fortune 500, I can get you maybe a client in those 90 days, but I'm not going to be able to get you an LOI. So I'm making sure that I can bring them from that 0 to 10 in under 90 days. Now, if you'd asked me 2 years ago if it would be possible, I would tell you no. But today, thanks to AI, you can do those things very quickly, very fast. You don't need to perfection your pitch deck for 3 months. You need to execute. That's what being a founder and being an entrepreneur all about. You need to execute quickly, because nobody's going to wait. Your competitors are not waiting for you to finish with your design and pitch deck. Nobody is waiting for you. Okay, the market is going to move with you or without you. You need to start moving.
100%. No, that's great, because I was thinking when people think, oh, I need to go and get $1 million, it's okay, let's say I believe your program is 10K, you have financing, whatever, right? It's to afford that, either you raise 10K, not $1 million, just what you need to be able to start, and then you raise it on a big valuation, so you're not getting left with nothing, or you go and get a job for 3-4 months and now you have the money.
Right.
People always think, oh, I need to go and raise money and then get this pressure and thinking about raising money. I grew my agency to 25 million in sales with 0 investors. The fitness business that I started, it was on a Google Doc. It cost me $0. The agency, I only would spend money when a client pays me. I use their money to go and fulfill the service. So you don't need money for many businesses, and people instantly always think, oh, I have this idea, I need to raise money.
Yeah, I have to raise money, or if I don't raise money. The first business that we had, which was the immigration company, I had the same approach, the same mindset. It was my first business. I came from big dreams and I wanted to do something big, so I also wanted to raise money. So I did raise, but from family and friends. I wasn't aiming for $1 million check. I was getting 20K just from family and friends, and then I took another 100K from the bank. So I went and took a loan. I took the risk. I'm going to come to somebody else and I'm going to ask him, give me $1 million, so you're going to take the risk. I just have an idea. I don't have anything. I don't have traction. I don't have clients. But yeah, give me $1 million check. Trust me. I'm not Sam Altman. I'm not a second, third, fourth-time entrepreneur. Those type of people, yeah, of course, they can get checks very easily. I'm a first-time entrepreneur. You have to put your trust in me. To put your trust in me, I need to show that I'm the one that's taking the risk. I'm the one that's executing. And to do that, you have to take the risk. Nobody's going to come and give you checks because you have a nice smile. That's not how it works.
100%.
From LinkMe. Before LinkMe, you started with a marketing agency. Now with LinkMe, it looks like you guys are in a huge momentum. I went to the office today. I saw the deck. It looks amazing. The numbers are just going up and up, which is awesome. That's what you want to see in any startup. That's what any investor is going to want to see when it's going to come to approach to a startup. Now, from the strategy that you guys didn't have revenue from before to now that you do have revenue, and not just revenue, you scaled up from 0 to how much right now?
2 million, 6
ARR?
months. Yeah.
That's amazing. So what was the approach from getting through to a pre-revenue to a revenue, and how did you make that shift? Because you said that you started at 2020, right?
Yeah.
So for about 4 years, you had no revenue from that. And people were used to it, right? Your influencers, the people that choose your account, they were very used to, okay, I'm not paying anything and just have this link in my bio. How did you do this shift, and what did you add to also keep the retention rate and also to shift it to a revenue? Like, what added value did you provide to people?
At the end of the day, once you become big enough, you can always start either having things that you had for free before, right? It's not always what did you add to create revenue. It's what did you just make now need to start costing money, right? If you think about, for example, in Twitter, it's like sometimes when you want to do certain things in Twitter or send X amount of messages or something like this, you get a limitation. It's like, okay,
right.
If you want this, pay the subscription, But they started with those things being for free. Now they just add things here and there where you have to pay for. Same with LinkedIn and stuff like that. So the major thing that allowed us to say we're ready to start collecting revenue is we wanted to take, the Mark Zuckerberg approach, where in the beginning, product, just get it out, get it in front of everybody. And then once you are used by so many big influencers, it becomes very, very easy for people to say, oh, this is a product worth paying a subscription for as, a beginner creator or something like that. And we also had it very easy too, where our competitors have been charging a subscription since the beginning, right? So that was first our advantage. Hey, we're free, you're paying. But that's still our advantage today, right? Anyone can still come and join for free. But they do have the option where, hey, we're used by the biggest names. We have some features that we don't give for free. You can upgrade and pay a small subscription, small enough where they don't even really need to stress on it, $10, $20 a month. But I think the transition was, once we had so many big names using it, we knew that, we would have the validation to be able to charge a subscription, and we would be able to have a lot of people want it as well, because maybe they can think, some of the influencers that are using it are also paying the subscription to be verified, or the total follower account and all that stuff that we offer there. Me personally, if I was the only founder of LinkMe, I probably would have wanted to launch subscriptions and revenue 3 years ago, once we already had, 20 big influencers.
Yeah.
But, it's a team effort, and, my two other partners, they wanted to wait it out a little bit to when they believed was the perfect timing. So, in God's plan, we can always say it was perfect timing, because now, it's growing very, very fast. Maybe if we launched it 3 years ago, it wouldn't have been as fast. It wouldn't have been as promising for our investors. Obviously, now they see, the hockey stick growth in 6 months. Everyone wants to invest more. They want to bring their friends, X, Y, and Z. So I would say, that's kind of how the transition went. And because of the fact that we were a tech startup, an app, we were never really pressured also to go and generate revenue, right? They knew, okay, we're getting all these users. Users at the end of the day have their value in itself, so that is revenue. We don't sell our data, but, hypothetically, if a company came to purchase us and they wanted to do something like that, we still have a valuation based off, the amount of traction that we have, right? So the brand, everything. So our investors never really stressed. Obviously now, having the revenue allowed us to bump up our valuation. Last year we were raising on 110 million, but we were stuck there at that valuation. And I want to say for 2 years, we were on that valuation. The moment we launched this revenue, it's like, okay, now we are showing hockey stick growth, growing by like 200-300K every single month in ARR, right? So it was very, very easy to transition up to the 200 million valuation that we're at now.
That's amazing. And also today when we were in office and you guys showed me like the pitch deck and went through that, I think that one of the things that I love the most is eventually when I'm preparing founders to meet with an investor, the main thing I'm telling them, putting the pitch deck aside, putting the design aside, putting the numbers and all of that, put that aside. Eventually, what the investors want to care the most, that you know your industry from A to Z. You know your industry, you know your competitors, you know your market, you know your clients, you know everything. And I feel like that every question I asked you guys, if it was an objection or if it was just a question to get more information, you answered, you added, you elaborated, and then even for the follow-up questions, everything was spot on. There was no question that you guys said, I need to search or I need to think about it or something like that. And eventually when you meet an investor, each meeting, and people don't understand that, it's such a big opportunity. You don't know what this meeting can provide you to your company and to your life. You don't know. People are taking it as granted. Okay, I'm going to meet with an investor. I have my ego. I have this big company. I'm going to put it in a valuation of, 100 mil before I even have any type of revenue. But then they're not ready. They're not ready, not just because they don't have a perfect pitch deck or a perfect business plan. They're not ready to even answer the questions. So in one of the podcasts I did here before, I did a podcast with the founder of Guerrilla, and she was on Shark Tank. So she told me that before she went to Shark Tank, before she went into that meeting, she searched online the most common questions that people were getting asked on Shark Tank, and she went through 150 questions, and she and her co-founder literally started answering all of the questions. But what happened, there was one question that she didn't manage to, a few questions that she didn't have time, because it was she had to go there at 5 or 6 a.m., something like that. So she didn't have time to go through the entire list, but they went for the most. And backstage, Mark Cuban asked her one of the questions she didn't have time to answer. And he said, I felt so bad, just because this could be a huge opportunity. And they wanted Mark Cuban, they wanted him in their company, but just because of that question, the confidence can drop. Your ego, especially in front of foreign investors, even put Shark Tank aside, any investor, angel investor, or a VC, or it doesn't matter who, when there is a question that you can't answer, the meeting can just go downhill from there.
100%.
And you have to be prepared. You have to make sure that you take in each opportunity to the maximum.
Definitely. And I think something to add on to that, to founders watching this, it's one of the things that can help that, of course, that strategy of looking up questions that investors ask and really knowing them in your market, especially today with AI. You can literally tell AI your business, these are the questions that a lot of people are going to ask me, what's the best way to answer them, and memorize them the same way you would a test. But the other good thing I would say that we've done at LinkMe that has helped us with certain situations like that is definitely building a strong board. So when we're looking for investors, it's we really want you to be strategic. Maybe we want you to be part of the board, add a lot of value, right? So in the early stages when we were raising, some of the people on the board, we would bring them on to our investor calls so they can have more confidence as well that, hey, look, there's people that have backed us and trusted us that have significant revenues. We have investors that have exited, $1 billion companies, few of them actually, other ones, $100 million, $200 million companies. So I think that's also a very good strategy is, slowly but surely, right, over time, you start building a good board behind you that can validate you and give confidence to investors that, when you're young, it's hard to trust, but when you're young and then have older people behind you, right, it's the perfect combination they want to see.
Yeah, eventually people are just looking for a check, but they don't understand investors, especially, VCs or investors, that like Mr. Wonderful, Mark Cuban, etc. It's not about a check. It's about the connections they have. It's about the knowledge they have. They've been through the same thing that you did hundreds of times with 100 different founders and different types of businesses. It's not about the check side, it's also about the value that the investor can bring you. If you're just going to look for the check and look for the money, you can do it. But if you're going to get even less money, but with an investor that can give you so much value and so much connections,
sure. It's better.
It's a much better approach, I think. Where do you see the next stages of LinkMe? Where do you think you guys are headed in the next year or two?
For sure. So throughout this whole time, we haven't really spent any money on acquisition, right? It's really been super small, minor, under $5,000 a month marketing budget, to get to where we're at now. So now we're looking to start, taking some of the profits that we have from the subscriptions and freely being able to dump money into paid media channels, Meta, YouTube, TikTok, etc. So we're planning on, just significantly increasing the amount of money that we spend, looking to spend $100K a month. And obviously that's going to take our revenue super high, or our user, or traffic, or activity very high. So yeah, I think the goals are just to keep the numbers rising at very high levels while we're improving the product every day. Seeing what people are asking for and adding it and making sure we're not missing out on anything, and just keep growing the valuation, right? I don't think either of, we're 3 founders there. I don't think either of us are in a rush to sell. We know how big we can take this. So, definitely not looking to even think about selling, I think, to over that $5 billion valuation number. So even then, maybe we're going to get cocky and want to keep going. So we'll see what happens. But yeah,
we're definitely heading there though.
We're heading there. It's just about now, spending more on paid media with getting good optimized numbers. And, the sky is the limit. You can spend $1 million a month, on ads. You can really increase it a lot. And thankfully, we have a lot of cash flow that comes from things that didn't cost us money to acquire, right? So that gives you also that extra boost of
Exactly.
Even if we're losing money on ads in the beginning, we're being covered by, our revenues that don't come from ads. So, it's looking promising. And with my agency, I still love having it on the side as something where I can help founders and other businesses with my strategies. And over time, I'll turn that more into, an investor role. So I also invested into LinkMe early on top of the sweat equity that I was given as a co-founder and the CMO. I've invested into, real estate and stuff. And I definitely want to, as I keep growing my resume and my portfolio, invest in startups and help with that avenue and consulting and stuff. So yeah, that's where I'm looking to, for me, where I'm heading, and also with LinkMe, where LinkMe's heading.
That's amazing. And one comment I do have about what you said before with using AI to prepare for the questions and all. First of all, you need to use AI for everything. Companies and people that are not going to use AI in this time, they're not going to be able to break through. But I do want to add one more thing, is to really be careful about the AI answers. For example, I'm getting a lot of founders because eventually we are an accelerator, we are an incubator, we help people to get started. So I'm getting a lot of people that, I talked to ChatGPT or I talked to Gemini, and they said I have $1 billion valuation. And they said that this idea is I asked them 1 out of 10, how much this idea innovative and how much can I make out of this? And again, I'm talking to you about 0 revenue. And they think they're at $1 billion valuation just because the chat said. Now, something that people need really to understand that right now those tools are a yes man. They're going to tell you yes to whatever you're going to tell them, unless it's illegal or something like that. And it's very important to know how to talk to these tools. So a lot of founders, and I'm doing this to some of the founders that are coming with this approach that, I'm already worth $1 billion. I don't need you guys, and can just raise millions until they're coming back after 2 months after they realize that. Which is okay, they're not coming from the space. I'm not saying anything bad about them. They're not coming from the space. They don't know the terminology. They know how thing works, and that's what we're here for. But what I'm telling them, on the call usually, when I'm with them in the Zoom call, I tell them, okay, let's go to ChatGPT and make a small experiment, and then do the exact same prompt that you told them about your company. But then I'm gonna give you an idea, and you're gonna throw that idea into it. So how much this idea is innovated from 1 to 10? What is the valuation, and et cetera, et cetera. But the idea I'm telling them is Uber for dogs. That's my main template, my main example, which don't have to be a genius to understand it's not something that can be in $1 billion valuation or can be a really good business. And obviously the response is 9 out of 10. You're going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. This is an amazing idea. There is definitely a painkiller for that. There is definitely this is your ICP, and et cetera, et cetera. Then people really believe that because they think, okay, AI knows everything, is being honest with me, and they don't understand that right now it's a yes man. It's trying to be positive to you for you to be continuously using it. So you really need to understand how to use those tools to not give yourself false information. Putting aside other people, putting aside investors, putting aside clients that you're talking to, but also for yourself as a founder, you need to make sure that you know your market, not the AI knows your market. You need to also do the research and validate everything, not just let artificial intelligence do it for you.
Super true. No, I agree 100%. That's crazy that they're coming in and they're thinking that, without doing any of the work, that they're going to have this valuation just from an idea. We
have people coming to us and said, okay, so I'm not here to do business, but I want to sell you my idea for $1 million. I want to sell you my idea for, an extraordinary amount of numbers, which I'm trying to tell them, okay, first of all, that's not our business. That's something we do. We don't buy ideas from people. The opposite, we're trying to help you to make your idea come true. And then when you say, okay, so you're going to take equity. So first of all, yes, we do invest in some startups, and we do also take equity from some startups. It really depends on the industry, and depends how much value we can bring to them as well. But we're not here to buy ideas or to invest in a founder that is not going to do any of the work. And I'm telling people, I'm not going to make you a millionaire. I can't guarantee you to make you a millionaire. I can guarantee you the check. You are the founder. You are the entrepreneur. You have to do the work. I can't do the work for everybody. I'm going to give you the step by step. I'm going to work with you. We're going to do the ones-on-ones. You're going to be in the program. I'm going to give you the most access I can to founders like yourself, or founders that I can bring into the program that actually going to help those founders. But I'm not going to make you a millionaire. You have to make yourself a millionaire. I'm just going to give you the path together. But people are thinking, okay, I'm joining to Accelerator, I'm joining to an incubator, I'm joining to a company like yourself. Okay, so you guys are going to build me the app, you're going to bring me 100K users, and you're going to put me at a $10,000 MRR in the first month. That's not how it works. And it's really hard sometimes to explain this to founders, which is kind of odd based on this entire conversation.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, I mean, from experience, some of the founders listening, like, to make it to like the levels where we're at with LinkMe and stuff like that's 16-hour days for 6+ years.
Got value? Subscribe, follow StartWise on Instagram, and keep learning with us.